This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
It's the dominant publication here in the West Tennessee area, and it's also a legacy publication, of course. It's been around for 185 years. I'll repeat that, 185 years.
Crazy.
It's a humbling number when you think about the history of this place and the editors that have come through the walls here.
This is Small Press, Big Ideas, a podcast about the business of local news in the United States. I'm your host, Paul Gewertz. Small Press, Big Ideas is about the opportunities and challenges that local news publishers are facing for their businesses. I'll sit down and talk with journalists, entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders, and more in the local news industry to find out what's working, what isn't, and how the local news ecosystem can innovate and flourish in the 21st century. Okay, today on the podcast, I am joined by Mark Russell. He's the executive editor of the Commercial Appeal in Memphis, Tennessee, and he's also the South Regional Editor for USA Today. And we've kind of been talking back and forth on LinkedIn for a while, but first time meeting face-to-face. So, Mark, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah. I kind of start every podcast the same, and we don't really know each other yet. So if you could just maybe tell me and the audience about your background, your kind of story in local news, local media, I'd love to hear it.
I'll tell you my story. So I've been in business now nearly 42 years, and I've worked in several markets, starting in Cleveland, Ohio, then Pittsburgh, back to Cleveland, Boston, and now Memphis for the last 13 years. And I've worked in a variety of jobs from, first off was Wall Street Journal. I worked in the Cleveland Bureau of the Wall Street Journal, then the Pittsburgh Bureau. So I'm working for a national, at that time, more business publication than it is now, which is a kind of a multi-topic publication. Wasn't back then when I first started there in the 1980s, mid-80s. And then I joined a local publication, the Plain Dealer in Cleveland, Ohio, and I've been with local publications ever since. The Cleveland Plain Dealer, the Boston Globe, and of course, Orlando Sentinel, where I worked for about 10 years before I came here 13 years ago to Gannett, which was known then as Gannett. Now it's, of course, USA Today company.com, and have been managing editor in both the Orlando Sentinel and editor at the Orlando Sentinel, and have been managing editor and now executive editor here at the Commercial Appeal, and took on a larger role about maybe 3 years ago as a VP for the South region, which is really 4 states. It's Mississippi, Tennessee, of course, where I reside, and North and South Carolina as part of USA Today company, the network, as we call it, USA Today Network.
Gotcha. And can you tell us a little more about the Commercial Appeal? I know I was looking on here.
Sure.
Serves 71 counties in Tennessee, Arkansas, and Mississippi. So it's a pretty large regional kind of publication.
We don't have anywhere near that reach or ambition. You must be looking at something from the 90s or something, because we haven't had that kind of reach for a number of years. Our primary coverage area is really Shelby County, which is our primary coverage area here in terms of West Tennessee. We also cover a bit of northern Mississippi. Main county there is DeSoto County, which is a kind of a bedroom community for Memphis and Mississippi. We don't really cover much of anything in Arkansas, and we haven't for quite a while. It's the dominant publication here in the West Tennessee area, and it's also a legacy publication, of course. It's been around for 185 years. I'll repeat that, 185 years.
Crazy.
It's a humbling number when you think about the history of this place and the editors that have come through the walls here.
Yeah, I'm sure it's changed a lot over that amount of time. And I wanted to also talk to you. I was kind of talking to you before we hit record. I've had people from local independents and maybe smaller, mid-sized chains, but somebody from an organization like USA Today Network. And so you're the executive editor of the Commercial Appeal, and you oversee, I think it said, I'm just going off of LinkedIn here, 18 other newsrooms.
And of that 19, really only 6 of them are sizable newsrooms. That's
Gotcha.
Memphis, Knoxville, Nashville, Greenville, South Carolina, Asheville, North Carolina, and then Jackson, Mississippi. The 6 are the primary newsrooms I oversee.
Yeah,
Best of
and
luck.
like kind of the one of the goals of this podcast is to see people from all different aspects of local media. Like what I'm just curious what your day-to-day looks like. You're the
Sure.
editor-in-chief or executive editor, sorry, of Commercial Appeal, but what's it look like managing all these other newsrooms from a larger area like that? What's it look
So
like?
fortunately for me, we have really strong editors in all those newsrooms. So it's not a matter of me doing day-to-day management of any newsroom outside of my own newsroom in Memphis. And I, of course, have a strong management team here in Memphis as well, too, with a news director who kind of functions as a managing editor. So I'm probably spending roughly half of my time on Memphis issues and managing the Memphis newsroom, which is a pretty sizable job in and of itself. Then the rest of that time, I'm coordinating with the editors in the other markets and looking to pair us up in the South region with USA Today, for example, on projects. We're trying to do something right now, of course, just a political thing on reaction from areas that are kind of solidly red, like Tennessee, Mississippi, and South Carolina, to the Trump administration, how they're doing in the first after the first year of the administration, how people were viewing the progress thereof of the administration. So it's things like that that I do. I coordinate with other newsrooms and coordinate with our parent company, which is really USA Today.
That's great. And like, could you talk about, so I think I've had one other person I've talked to people all over the country, mostly the
Yeah,
US. I was actually just editing a podcast I recorded a while back that's going to be going out from another guy who was in Tennessee, actually, which is funny. But could you talk a little bit, like you said, you talked about politics, solidly red some parts of the state, but could you just talk about kind of some of the unique kind of issues in the region, like where you are down there? Does that make
sure.
sense?
Let me
Because,
talk first
this is
about
based on
Memphis and
local.
sure.
Yeah.
Let me talk about Memphis and West Tennessee
Yeah.
as a region.
Yeah,
Because I think
definitely.
it's a really interesting place because it's not quite the Deep South, although it may appear to be the Deep South. It's really not. Mississippi is, but we're not in West Tennessee, and it's really not the Midwest. It's a little bit further south
Right.
to be sort of Midwest. So it's sort of on its own little area of concentration, if you will. And it's a really interesting, fascinating place with a history all its own in West Tennessee. It's got just looking at Memphis, for example, it is the largest African-American majority city in the nation. It stands alone in that respect. So it's got a particularly strong cultural background history as a place where African-Americans migrated here from the Deep South to Memphis back in the 40s and the 50s. It also has a particularly strong business entrepreneurial element. It's the place where FedEx started, a small
Hmm.
delivery company here based here in Memphis. We also,
Small.
yes, I always say, then I followed by saying FedEx, but I did the other way around today. But we also have, St. Jude is based here, AutoZone,
Hmm.
which is one of the leading suppliers of automotive kind of aftermarket repair parts. And in addition to that, we have, International Paper. It's a real entrepreneur area that people don't really fully understand that or even appreciate that when they come here. It's a great place to live and work. I've always thought of it that way. But it also is a great news town. And part of that reason is that, Memphis has, and it's a kind of does not stand alone in this respect. There are many areas of the South that are similar to Memphis and having a lot of the issues that affect the nation are particularly felt here in Memphis, whether it be health challenges, obesity, high blood pressure, things like that. We also, I think, have a particular problem here in Memphis shared with places like New Orleans, Cleveland, Ohio, where I used to work, Detroit, and other places of poverty, child poverty, as well as poverty in general in the city. Educational achievement is a big issue here, has been a big issue for a while. But it also is a place where people don't run away from the issues and they tackle them head on. It's always been a place that I've appreciated the fact that people here understand there's a particular problem of poverty and education levels, and they attack them head on. They attack them head on. They seek out partnerships with others to do reform education initiatives. The nonprofit sector here is pretty strong, always has been. I think it's partly because the level of poverty is so severe that people see it. You can't avoid it, so you have to do something to work on it.
It's like you were saying, a lot of people don't think of Memphis. That's why I like talking to people from these areas. 'Cause I don't know. I'm from Colorado. I've lived here my whole life. I'm not,
What part of
but I
Colorado are
think
you in?
I'm
What
in
part?
Western Colorado,
Okay, gotcha.
town called Montrose. I was in the Denver
Gotcha.
area for most of my life. Uh, Denver grew too much and the traffic was driving me insane. So we went out where there's a little less of that out here on the western part of the state.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I have good friends in Denver.
but
It's a great city. I've been there a couple of times. Great
yeah,
city.
it's awesome. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's beautiful. I love Denver. And, yeah. Yeah. And my folks are still there, so I'm there quite a bit. But you talked about how, people don't, I don't think of Memphis as like having a strong business community. That's super interesting. I think at Memphis, I think of like Elvis or music. I know there's a big like
Yeah.
music background in Memphis. Was you said you worked for the Wall Street Journal, kind of like a business reporting. Is that kind of what drew you to there, or is it at least interesting to you, kind of covering
Yeah. So
those
a couple of things.
businesses?
One, I wanted to talk about Memphis music and food first, as you mentioned that.
Yeah,
So
yeah, definitely.
I never lead with those two things because people know them already. They know about
Right.
Elvis, they know about the blues, they know about barbecue, they know about the food culture. So I never lead with that because it won't surprise anyone. So I'm glad you picked up on it because those are things that Memphis is actually absolutely known for and for good reason.
hmm
But I never lead with those things because people know them already. And I think, for me, really, Memphis was the culmination of sort of a couple career stops. And I really wanted to be an editor. I've been an editor in Orlando for a while, lost my job in Orlando. And I wanted to be an editor again here. And I got the opportunity to do so in Memphis. So I came to Memphis to do that. And I also knew of Memphis as I'm a native of St. Louis, which is just about 4 hours, 4.5 hours north of here. So was familiar with the area, had been here to visit a couple of times. I was going to get me closer to family. I was living in Orlando before. I've been moving closer to family by being here. And it really worked out well for me to come here. And I've loved it, enjoyed it. Can't think of any place else I want to be right now. So I'm glad I'm here.
Yes, that's great. Like I said, I just recently talked to somebody from down there, and it sounds like I want to make my way over there. I haven't explored that part of the country enough.
Oh yeah, come on out. We'll get the lights on. Come on out. Come visit.
I want some barbecue too. We don't.
Yeah.
We have awesome like Mexican food here, but the barbecue is hit or miss. I could go for some of that.
I like to joke, and it's not even a joke really. I say that the most average barbecue here in Memphis is better than the best barbecue in most cities. You can't go wrong coming here to barbecue.
I know. I need some ribs. So also, I didn't have this in the prep, but I also like to get this out there. I'm just curious so the commercial appeal and the other newsrooms you manage, what kind of formats you guys going out in? Obviously, everybody's digital these days.
Yes.
Just curious,
Yes.
kind of on that side of things, like newsletter. What else do you do? Yeah.
So we do it all. I mean, literally we do it all. So we certainly all have websites and we are on apps and we have the digital platform. We also have newsletters, topical newsletters, very specific about sports and about, we have one in Memphis called the Good News newsletter, which is just, as it says, inspirational, positive stories. We also have business newsletters, food newsletters. And then we have some general newsletters that are called Daily Briefing, which is a compendium of the best stories of the day. And that comes out every day, 7 days a week. Same time every morning with an email distribution list. And then, of course, we have a print edition. Every instance here, the papers I manage, we have a print edition. We don't print on Saturdays. That's a e-edition. And e-edition is something that's been growing overall for us in all our markets because I think people are discovering, probably late to the party, but they're discovering that e-edition is a really convenient way to get the paper early, as we, in some cases, in Memphis and in Greenville, South Carolina, as well as Jackson, Mississippi, we're delivering the paper by mail. So we're mailing to people. And depending on when you get your mail, you might get it as early as 10 a.m. or you might get it late as 3 or 4 p.m. Central Time. So by getting an e-edition, you're going to see the same replica edition electronically at 5 a.m. every single day. So if you're a really early riser, or if you're a saleswoman or salesman traveling a lot, the e-edition is the thing to look at. And the folks I've talked to on the phone who have complained about not being able to receive the print edition, I always say, well, have you ever considered the e-edition? They go, well, no, I've never considered that. Just try it out for a week. See if you like it. And invariably, they all tell me, I wish I had discovered this sooner because it's a very convenient way to read the news early. And then you can still get your print edition delivered whatever time the mail comes. And you can look at that, kick back at night, see it the next morning if you just want to read it again and see some stories that you may have missed in the e-edition. But the e-edition is very convenient and you can mail specific stories to neighbors or friends of yours that you want them to see a story on the edition. You can't do that with the print edition. You got to tear it out and mail it. No one's going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I like to share
them used to doing that. The next stage of this is that now that you're used to looking at the edition, how about getting our app? Download our app, and then you can look at video. You can look at a whole range of photo galleries, and you can email those stories on a much easier basis to friends and relatives right from your phone. And again, people who say, well, I don't want to look at the paper by phone. And I'll say to them, well, do you do everything else by your phone? Do you get reservations for a restaurant? Do you look up books? Yeah, of course they do, right? We all do. Just try the app edition on the phone, see if you like it. And invariably they all tell me, wow, that's even better than I thought, because it is. It's just better than you thought. And it's not like I'm trying to push them into doing digital versus print. I'm just giving them an option, because if you're complaining about not having a print edition early, well, there's an option for it. You don't have to just wait for it to come. You can go somewhere else to get the news.
Yeah, I'm always curious about formats because just, the world's changed and is changing so much. And I like the daily brief style too, like you were saying. I just have like some industry ones I read every day, and they're super helpful, like when I'm drinking my coffee first thing in the morning.
Yeah. And they come right
like
to you.
that.
And they're sort of personalized, tailored for you in many ways.
Yeah, the stuff you're into, if you're into the business, if you're into the food and events and stuff going on. That's good stuff. And I also like that you guys are still going, strong with print. It's good to hear, because you hear about a lot of print products shutting down, and I have fond memories from my childhood, even of getting like the Rocky Mountain News here in the Denver area, and it's just different to have the physical. I'm sure it's good to have the multiple formats and everything. So,
well, and
yeah.
I'm sure you have noted that when you talk to people, that in markets where you have an older population, which we really have in Memphis and some of the southern cities, they tend to favor print over digital publication. So as long as we have that population of folks who really favor print's going to be around a while. But over time, as that population ages out of reading or dies, that's not the reality for us 20 years from now. I'm pretty sure we won't be talking about print 20 years from now. Or we're talking about a lesser iteration of print with fewer days, because there'll be fewer people reading it, because, I'm in my early 60s, and I've got son who's 36 and a daughter who's 31. They've never read the paper and print version.
Right.
And none of their friends have either. I'm sure maybe your generation, people younger than you, they're all getting the paper on digital devices. And none of them are getting it delivered to them via a printed product. Although, and this is a real exception, some magazines are taken off that are very specific, tied to specific interests of food and sports and woodworking and wine and you name it. So that's a good thing, because people were actually paying for that, and advertisers are seeing that as a real market breakthrough for them, when they're trying to reach specific audiences doing woodworking, or somebody who's a cat lover or a car lover, things like that.
Yeah, I must be right on the cusp, because I remember like newspapers fondly. I'm 40, so I'm 4 years older than your son. I must be right on that cusp of like I kind of have a foot in the old analog world, and I'm hosting a podcast from thousands of miles away right now, so that too.
So here's how I usually figure out people who are in the cusp or not. I'm going to say to you the same question. Did you ever have a rotary dial or a touch-tone phone, or did you always have a mobile phone?
We definitely had. I didn't have. My grandparents had a rotary. We had just regular touch-tone phones.
But you had it in your family. You had one, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I didn't get my first cell phone until I was out of high school, so I'm right on that. On that, it's just funny how fast things move. Yeah.
Many of the younger folks in their 20s, even up to 30, have never had a rotary phone. Don't even know what the hell it is. How would you even use a rotary dial phone? Or they don't know. So those are the folks who probably are more likely getting all their news via the phone, because they've only been using the phone their entire adult life, teenage adult life, just a phone.
Yep, and it's just going to stay like that. We were on a road trip earlier this year, or last year, I guess, and I have 4-year-old twin sons, and we were in a hotel, and the biggest thing they wanted to play with was the phone in the hotel room. They're like, what's this computer?
What is this thing?
And then I called them, and I went in the bathroom on my phone. They're like, hello, Dad? And then they just wanted to do it for about 4 more hours till it got really old. Yeah. But yeah, it's funny. They have no idea.
If you want to see something funny, go to a place, I don't know, you pick the place, Starbucks, a hotel lobby, doctor's waiting room, anywhere where you see a lot of people like around, all of them on their phones. And I'll sometimes go in there with 5 magazines, because I get a lot of newspapers, you might imagine, both. I'm subscribing to them, I'm reading them online. But I'll put the phone down for that one episode to show people, hey, there's a life outside of reading your phone. And I'll have a stack of newspapers, and I'll leave them there, by the way.
Nice.
I won't take them with me. And I'll look back to see if anybody is going to reach for these papers. And invariably, like one person will probably like real gingerly grab it and look at it and start to skim through it and look around like, is this thing free? What is this? And the magazines are more likely to be picked up. But
yeah, that makes sense.
I've been places where I left the New York Times, that day's New York Times, gold
Right.
standard newspaper. No one is going to touch it. No one.
Yeah, that's crazy. But it
Crazy.
is, it's nice
Well,
to
it is.
it's nice to have for
Yeah.
like you said, maybe not 20 years. That's a good segue. I've been asking everybody about this. We're just talking about this right now, how technology is changing, formats are changing. So I got the obligatory AI question.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on AI, like kind of in general. I get opinions all over the board for people on this, and then also just if you and your team are using it in any way in your workflows.
So
I'll let you talk. Yeah.
So we've embraced it not only at our company writ large, but we've also embraced it in Memphis, and we've embraced it in our South region. And we started off just baby steps. We embraced it to help out with sort of story highlights. So there's a function in our system, our computer system, where you can punch a button and you can pick AI story highlights on the story that the editor or the reporter has to ultimately approve before you publish them. But the AI system will evaluate the story, scan it very quickly, and then invariably come up with 4 really good pieces of information that give the reader a summation of the story in 4 quick bites. And we discovered through some research that when you use that function, it leads people to read further into a story. Because the fear was that people would read the highlights and not read the story. Well, in fact, they read further into the story because the highlights do such a good job of teasing what's in the story that it makes people want to read further into it. So that's one thing we've done. The other things we're doing, we're using AI through a Microsoft Copilot, just individually editors and reporters to do things like summarize meetings for us or help us come up with of kind of shortening the process. If you're trying to put together a project and you want to go through all the stories about a certain topic and then summarize what we've reported already without reading all those stories, it takes a lot of time if you're going to do a Google search and read all the stories we've produced on, say, civil rights marches in Memphis in the last 50 years. Well, you can use a service like a Microsoft Copilot and pull all the stories from a publication about a certain topic and then summarize what they said and get the timeline for what we reported. That's a tremendous help for us as reporters and editors. And the goal for us always is to have AI be the thing that helps us spend more time on stories that matter, enterprise stories that AI can't do. So use it as a function to help us do the tasks that a reporter can perhaps make themselves more knowledgeable about a topic by using AI. I've used it in a number of different ways as an editor to help me do research on certain topics. So it's been wonderful for us as a newsroom, and we've been careful to avoid using AI in ways that present to readers information and stories that appear to be produced by a journalist, but actually produced by AI. We don't do that. We're very careful to avoid that.
Yeah, I agree. I think most of the folks on the show have said the same. The term I've been throwing around lately, which just sounds like how you're using it, how I use it in my company and everything. It's more of an AI sandwich. And what I mean by that is, the human is the bread. You do the input, the AI does a lot of the work, the human checks it, makes sure there's nothing misleading, or sometimes it's just completely, what do they call it, hallucinates and just like makes stuff up. So you really have to keep an eye on that. Yeah.
That happens.
Yeah. So agreed.
Have to be careful.
Yeah, definitely. It is. I mean, for doing research, for even helping me brainstorm things. If I'm putting a project together, it's great. Or another thing a lot of folks say is helping write headlines. If you for like a story, it's great at like brainstorming some ideas to go with and stuff like that. So cool. Yeah, I just wanted to get your take on that.
I didn't do it with you, Paul, but I could have, for example, gone to Microsoft Copilot and said, how do you pronounce your last name again? Is it Gewirtz? How do you pronounce it? Your last name?
Gewirtz. Yeah, so nobody gets it right the first time.
Give me 5 key facts about Paul, and let the system go to work, and it would give me 5 key facts about you before I can do that like 2 minutes before we even we're talking. And I would have this 30-second compendium of information that would help me have a conversation with you if I was interviewing you, for example. And I think those are the kind of ways of using AI that makes it a time savings device for us. And, it's helpful for us. We're not publishing that information. We're just using it to help us be better journalists and to be better researched on the topic we're looking at.
Yep, I just recently did that. I recently have been punching my name. Tell me about Paul Gewertz in couple of Claude and ChatGPT or whatever, and it's actually pretty good. I'm actually
Yeah.
pretty happy. I'm like, okay, that sounds pretty accurate.
Well,
I think it's got the point down. Yeah.
I used it, and we've all done it. I used it by myself recently,
Uh huh.
and I had forgotten that I did a keynote speech at a university. I guess it would have been about maybe 17, 18 years ago at my alma mater, University of Missouri. I did the commencement address for the winter commencement. I can't remember what year it was now, but I had forgotten all about that thing. And it actually pulled up the copy of the speech. It pulled up photos of me at the lectern. I was shocked because I didn't have those things in any kind of organized system that I could have tapped
Right.
into. But it found those things in university publications that I had long since forgotten about. I may have read them at the time, but AI does something like that that's really helpful for you.
Great. That's great
I mean, if
stuff.
you were writing a memoir, for example, or an autobiography, it would be an invaluable tool for you to recall dates and places and things where there's a public record of it, but you don't know where to look, can't find it, and it gives you sort of a basis to start your work. You can see everything that you've done that's available via public sources that somebody put in a blog 20 years ago that you forgot about. It's a very good, useful tool for that.
Yep. Agreed. Another question I've been asking everybody lately, and kind of to preface this, is because, the local news, local media has had its challenges over the last couple decades due to a lot of different reasons that everybody listening to this probably knows about. Um, I'm just curious, like, from where you're sitting, flash forward 5 years, where do you see the local news industry going, and yourself, the commercial appeal in particular? I'm sure
So
USA Today Network isn't going anywhere, but yeah, I'd like to hear that.
I'll start with the second part first because I think the
Yeah.
commercial bill and local news in Gannett is not going anywhere anytime soon.
Hmm.
We're going to still be around. We're going to continue to evolve. I mean, we call ourselves right now trying to invent the next iteration of our company that's going to be more successful, better engaged with our audiences. And you can't stand pat. You got to keep doing that every single year, sometimes every single month, of trying to answer the question of what matters most to your readership. And I think our advertising department is really, frankly, doing the same thing with advertisers, which is equally as important because that's going to sustain us and give us a revenue source for our business. Because as you well know, in my side of the equation, in newsrooms, we spend the money. We help make it too because we build audience, but we spend a lot of
Right.
the money. And advertising brings it all in. So we're sort of tied at the hip in terms of that. And I think it's going to be around for quite a while. I think local news, obviously, you point this out, has been under some pressure for a number of years. And I think you can tie it all back to the change in the business model that, we don't have the supremacy we used to have on specific things like classified advertising. We don't
Hmm.
have it on display advertising. We face significant competition from Google and Facebook, from search advertising, and all the different ways that people can advertise now that they couldn't dream of advertising
Yep.
20 years ago. And I think we also face challenges from a readership, particularly that's grown a little bit weary of what I'll call, subscription overload. People have a subscription to Netflix and HBO Max and Prime Video and 3 publications, a couple magazines. And they wake up one day and say, well, why do I have all these subscriptions? I don't need all this stuff. And they start to pick off 1 or 2 things. And, we want to be, as the commercial appeal, using an example here in Memphis, the one thing that they feel is indispensable. It's essential to keep because we're covering local news in a way they can't get anywhere else. But again, that's not always going to be the case, that people will look around and say, well, I can get the same kind of news from TV for free because their website doesn't charge me any money. So they may get, and they may say, well, I don't value the enterprise reporting you're doing. And we have to do that better. So they value that enterprise reporting. So it's a constant struggle on our part to be indispensable to people, to be the thing that people want to keep as one of their top tier things they subscribe to, particularly as you ask them to fork over money on a monthly basis to subscribe to something when they're having all kind of pressure to subscribe to other things these days. I think you and I both understand that and know that.
Hmm. Yep. Well said. Mark, I think I've touched on everything I had on here, but can you tell everybody where people can find you, connect with you, or anything else you want me to link to or
Sure. You
promote
can
or anything
find
like that?
me individually. If you mean individually, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. You can just find me with my name, Mark Russell. I think on Instagram, Mark R130 on Instagram. You can find me on Twitter X at Mark Russell 44. That's MARK Russell 44. You can find me in all the ways on those platforms. You can also email me at mark.russell at commercialappeal.com, as well as mrussell488 at gmail.com. So that's an easy way to reach me. And of course, my primary publication that I supervise is the Commercial Appeal. That's commercialappeal.com, but also on Instagram, as well as Facebook. I think you can find me. You can find it as Commercial Appeal on Facebook, but on Instagram, it's just Memphis News. And I love that we have that Memphis News moniker. We got it very early on.
That's a good one. Yeah. It's good to have those good ones like that. I'll link to all that stuff. So if you're listening, you can just scroll down in your app and click on that and find Mark and connect with him. So yeah, Mark, this is great. Thank you so much. Hope you have a great day.
Appreciate the time and all the best.
Yeah,
Take care.
Problem.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Small Press Big Ideas. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to help the show, the best thing you can do is to tell a friend or colleague and just take a few minutes to leave a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening to right now. It only takes a minute out of your day, but it really does help the podcast grow and reach more ears. Check back for new episodes every Monday.